capable in COVID times.
And I know that COVID, everything had to change, but I think they were more nimble and able to like address these issues.
They're familiar with the issues.
And they've been
out
of work the longest. And I think that there's something there that is a little frustrating about how when we are working with a set of rules and regulations and mandates, and people who are making the decisions are not necessarily in the best position to make that, and they're not looking for creative solutions, we end up with a large population that suffers unnecessarily more. I mean, you're in the labor world. You see that all the time where it's like, and that happens on both sides. Like I really worry about.
Well, the funny thing is during COVID times too, is like everybody's all for essential workers, which by the way are people, working in food processing plants
and
everything
in this
else.
County, that's most everybody.
Right. They're very pro essential workers so we can eat, but it's not safety based. It's that we've got to have food.
Yeah. And we can't do it ourselves.
Right.
And I was already on, because I had quit my job a year before, I was already on this kick of like, I'm going to grow it and then I'm going to cook it. Don't eat a lot of meat. I don't eat a lot of processed food. I have, weird diet restrictions. So it's like, okay, this is actually pretty easy. I'm pretty happy with like a bag of dry granola and a spoon. I can figure it out.
Right.
And it works. I also, live alone and live remotely. So it's, I can kind of like, I can do this. Like I don't need to be near a nexus of people.
Right. But the decisions on who's going to work and who's not weren't made around what's safe and what's not safe.
I think it was the best decisions we could given the government process we have.
I mean, my whole take on COVID is, everybody's just got to like cut everybody else some slack.
But I think
whether it's teachers cutting parents some slack and parents cutting teachers slack, and
yes, and
everybody's got to cut everybody some slack.
Okay, bring back to the education thing, but yes, but I think also a sign of good government, meaning like the verb, like how to govern groups of people, they need to on the back end make things right, because a government as a body can make regulations based off of wisdom, like, okay, well, we need to fix this, so we need to raise tax base so we can fix these roads, and that's always something that people fight against. And you have to take a hit for the team and say, we need money, and Petaluma doesn't have a sales tax. Petaluma doesn't have a lot of revenue coming in from its for its town government to do some of the ambitious things we would like to do. Not only that, but we have to keep up with making this a desirable place to visit and live and enjoy and pass through and whatever. We can't just make this, not that it's in a ghost town, but we can't be neglectful willfully. So if you have that information, great. But then on the back end, make it right for people who suffered unnecessarily. And if you don't do that, you're not really doing your job as the caretaking of people. But with the education part is the part
on all of us too.
Yes, but the education is the one I have a really hard time, because I don't know everybody's story, but it seems like a common thread is putting parents more involved in the education of children has been great in a lot of cases, but in some cases, the this is all I can do or whatever ends up with the kids falling a little bit short, and maybe kids who need a different form of attention and guidance from their teachers, which quite frankly, teachers are also frustrated. They can't reach out to every kid individually. They do the best they can.
Yeah, tremendously.
The kids are the ones that are going to suffer, and that we're going to see that in 20 years, 10 years. There'll be studies and like, oh, this kid graduated.
Oh, he's
COVID
a COVID
time.
kid. Yeah,
there'll be something like that, right? Because we're Americans, we always label it like that. But we know that right now.
You're going Freakonomics on me.
We can't fix that on the back end. So I think special attention to issues of that, labor, health, and safety are things that.
But those are the rings in a tree, right? Of our society. I mean, there's going to be a big, thick burn ring in the tree ring of COVID.
Yeah, and we're bad at managing those. I think that when American society is put in charge of something, we scatter and we don't unify. And I was talking to my friend who. Same one I moved into with Chicago. He lives in Germany now, and they just are going into another month forced lockdown. Not extreme, but very, very close to where they were in March for 1 month. And he just has a newborn, so he's like, wow, it doesn't really change our life that much.
Right.
And by the way, he had state-provided in-home care for 6 weeks after the birth of his child without asking. That's just like a thing that happens.
Yeah.
So, there you go. Socialized medicine is a horrible thing.
But he doesn't have people running into the restaurant tearing masks off of other people yelling about freedom.
He's a professor and a librarian, and so he can do most of his job from home. And she was a viral and viral researcher for the University of Freiburg, and
virologist,
something like that. But she gets basically a year off anyway. So she just moved that back, and then she'll still have employment, but also because of the point is. there was more of a relationship between the people who could make a difference and the people who were suffering to say, we get it, we're going to do what we can, but we're going to take control over this so that the suffering is minimal and any suffering will be addressed and compensated accordingly.
Instead of
doing this, like, let's make it political. I don't care who you vote for, but like allowing other people to suffer because it's easier. The kind of like turn away, don't look feeling feels.
Do the Kardashian birthday island where you don't have to look at anybody.
Yeah.
Did you hear about that?
No, but I think that's kind of how Australia was formed, wasn't it? It's like, let's put all the bad people in Australia, and now you have like this awesome nation built its own personality.
Yeah, the Kardashian island. So it was Kim Kardashian. I just heard on the radio today. It was Kim Kardashian's 40th birthday. And so they rented an island, and then they did the 2-week quarantine and tested everybody. And then they had this week of whatever. And of course, she's commenting on, it's hard times and not everybody gets to do this. I get that. And it's like, a lot of people are losing their businesses. A lot of people are losing their houses.
Their lives.
Their lives, yeah.
I think there will be...
in other words, the disparity sometimes.
Yeah. And I think there will be a reckoning for that. Because I think even all of us, even here in Petaluma, I mean, we're sitting outside and there's a lot of people in places that maybe that wouldn't be an available choice to them. I think a lot of that reckoning is going to be harder for us to swallow. And not only that, but depending on how this election goes, the way I was describing it the other day is no matter what happens next week, there's going to be somebody who just felt like they got cut off and they're going to be mad and chasing the people that are ahead of them. And the people ahead of them are going to be driving forward and continuing their path of behavior. It's just like, it's like a bad traffic accident waiting to happen where you have a large mass of vocalized people who have platforms to express disgust are going to be disgusted. And it's going to be, either way, there's going to be a continuation of the fighting. And I just don't think it's going to be,
America's split right down the middle, man. Half and half.
We say that, but I don't think it's half and half. In fact, that we're all. It's not like.
Well, I mean, if you're talking about population,
Civil War is a little bit gun shy, but I think that there's definitely a group of people who think that anybody who thinks differently than that is completely wrong and upset, and it goes both ways. And it's that we have no interest in creating the bridges. I think what will happen is people will start to notice, like, oh, Phil's a great guy. I didn't know that he thought differently than I did on this particular subject matter. But he's still a great guy. Like, oh, how can I rectify it? It's like those old after school specials. Like, oh, but
I think there's a market for political
jocks and nerds can get along. Wow.
And there's like a market for political anger. And so they want to amplify that. Right.
But I think that is sad because
talking about Clear Channel.
So I would be so happy if
I'm looking at you, Clear Channel,
but I would be happy if it was like, oh, I'm so upset that the Dodgers won. Right.
No, but it's become so important.
Team base. But now if you're politically diametrically opposed, you end up hating and acting to harm others.
The rest of baseball.
Yeah.
You want to see your team win at the expense of everybody else. Yeah,
I'm a Cubs fan. I know exactly what that is.
The sportsmanship, I just want a kinder, nicer America, man. So anyway, I think, and to your point, I don't think politics were that important to people as they are today in imposing my ideas on somebody else. But
that's not politics. I think imposing my idea on somebody else is not politics. It's that I want to be comfortable with how I think and feel and make sure that other people are forced to think and feel I do. And I don't want to be told what to do. It's like, well,
so I'm safe if everybody thinks like me.
But here's the thing. If everybody says that, there's no change. It's a stalemate. And it's not that somebody needs to be one or the other. My answer is fine, multiplicity. Like, you don't need to have a us and them. You don't need to have a north and south. Like, you don't need to have these things where it has to be opposed. And we should be smarter to realize that's how Coke and Pepsi keep us drinking sugary, horrible water that's going to kill your teeth and your health the rest of your life, is because they're like, well, are you a Coke or are you a Pepsi person? Like, there's a million other choices.
Right.
Or whatever the thing might be.
But
like,
to the point, and you having been a negotiator, you know that there's definitely plenty of win-win scenarios, and it doesn't have to be a zero-sum game.
Make the pie bigger. Yes. Like, that was like, there's two principles that I really learned in spending 18 years in law was make the pie bigger and never walk into a situation without knowing what you're willing to give up and what you're not willing to give up. And if you compromise on any three of those things,
but also empathy is critical, which in politics nowadays it's not.
But I think that also empathy somehow got affiliated with weakness, and
we're fucked.
Because Mr. Rogers died, so that's what happens. Like, empathy was such a tool for a lot of previous generations, and I'm not just talking about the hippies. I think empathy became
just human
I
empathy.
spent some time.
Petaluma is a good example of that too, where you've got old agriculture and new kind of arts, and there's
this is going to be my thing. This is going to be
the pie bigger.
This is the thing about Petaluma specifically that I'm really frustrated with.
Yes,
I used to attend in person and attend online a lot of like city council and committee meetings for the city, and oftentimes there will be somebody who comes to the committee meeting, and I did a lot of morning radio, so I get it's like, oh, I'm a long time listener, first time caller, but there's a lot of people that will come up and they will reiterate how long they've lived in Petaluma, or they will reiterate how long their family has been doing something here, and they will often affiliate it with something else, like poultry business or the cattle business, some of these broad businesses, or something really specific like this thing or this family name. And they feel it's important for people to express that. And then they'll go on to express how this whole thing needs to change and everything needs to follow the way that I think. And I feel like, are you trying to say that your argument is reinforced by the fact that you've been here longer? Because if you do that, then youth have no value. Then change can only happen when the oldest of people or the most longevitous of people can decide change is going to happen. And that is a ridiculous form of progress.
Right.
And I appreciate it.
It's overly weighted.
But I also think that for every somebody who stands up and says, because I've been in this family for 300 years and there's a street named after me or a building or whatever it is, or a ranch or
Herman's and Sons Hall.
Yeah. If that's and therefore my opinion has more value, then, you're not paying attention to the Miwok voices that you completely displaced. And you have a giant mural downtown that shows the white man coming and knocking the Miwoks out of town for industry and progress. And look where it got them. Right. So this is
not only that, but then the world changes,
Yeah. And horrible things happen.
And you get left behind too. And if you're an old farming family, you better learn to,
but some
adapt.
of them, I mean, you got a malt hat on. Like some families are geniuses with how they come up. The Giacomini's, like how they reinvent their
business. By the way, so my malt hat is old.
Yeah. I've noticed it's an old logo. It's not. Yeah.
Boy, malt, they've been in some shit.
Yeah.
But they've earned it too with some of those farming families. I mean, you're talking about the old farming families, in the way I understand it now, is that they, basically they've kind of created a system to kind of self-reinforce, kind of keep that stuff to themselves.
Dude, just read the script.
The script?
I like it.
All right.
You talk to the mothership up there?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Is that what it is?
Yeah, exactly.
Everybody wants to know. I mean, I had my hair done, but it's radio, right?
That must have been easy.
Yeah.
What station is it?
It's not a station.
It's just a podcast.
Internet, yeah.
Yeah, the internet, the station.
Good.
The internet's.
They told me to go do it.
Oh, thanks.
Oh, okay.
But
we should wrap this up probably too, because I'm melting.
Yeah, so am I. But I think that old families have a lot of value at the conversation. I think that new people have a lot of conversation to have, and I think that we're at a point where the idea of change being robust and being very shocking and jarring to a lot of people is somewhat comfortable. It's kind of like I feel most comfortable when it's chaotic, like when I have a lot of projects going on and my house is a mess and I can't find anything I'm looking for. I feel most energetic at that. I think that in a positive way, if we keep up with this kind of churn, we're not going to end up with anybody's ideal quote-unquote utopia, but that's meant to be a directional intention. That's how you decide, back to ethics we started with, is like that's how you decide the world works. And if you decide that providing more resources to people so that they can sustain their own way of living is better, providing people resources and accommodations or whatever they need to thrive is better than not providing it. Or if you feel a market-based system in which everybody is a meritocracy where you earn things, both of those are saying fairness is at stake. And we're not fair. And that's the change that needs to happen. And I think a lot of people see that. It's just how they play it out and where we decide we're going to go before we get frustrated.
On the need for UBI and some kind of social health care net.
Something.
That's what traps people in law jobs or other jobs too, is healthcare too. It's crippling.
And I was lucky enough that I don't have dependents or I don't have anybody who's expecting me to do anything. So I don't have obligations or anything I have a different set of rubric to make decisions. And so it's easier for me to float through that. But absolutely, I believe that everybody should have access to free and affordable or free healthcare.
Right. I mean, healthcare, can you imagine the power it would give people to say, I don't like this job?
Yeah.
I'm gonna go look for another job.
And here's the other thing too, is that I was raised in a competitive culture where you should always feel that you haven't satisfied your masters. and that you haven't fulfilled the obligation. I don't mean as a particular person, but that there is somebody out there who is the perfect form, the master form of what you should do, and you need to work towards that. And I think, no.